33 years old this year and I own 2 companies.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of On 3 Ticket. I'm Avin and today we have Frank from NextGen AI. Nice to meet you, Frank.
Nice to meet you. My name is Frank and I'm 33 years old this year and I own 2 companies. One is a traditional lead generation and the other one is a AI generative marketing agency. Yeah.
Before you started this business, what did you study firstly, and did what you study relate to what you're doing now?
Studied marketing in SMU. I think it was a very good school because there was a lot of hands-on for us, also not just theory and everything. Of course, along the way, it is very relevant to what I'm doing these days also because it's related to sales and marketing. And one thing, however, though, I think slightly different from this education part is the hands-on application. Right now, I think whatever that we learn in the textbooks, consumer behavior, just when it comes to application, things are just very different. For example, 4Ps, we don't consult our clients called 4Ps, right? It's fuzzy-wuzzy, you know, sometimes it's about price, sometimes it's about promotion, but there should be some systems, there should be some creativity, there should be some flexibility. So I think that's all real-life application and it's a good space to be in. So the first business that we were doing is actually Epic Engage Media. It's a traditional lead generation agency. Back then, we focused on only doing one thing right, rather than being a master of none. Jack of all trades, master of none. We chose not to walk down that path. So we spoken to our team and say, hey, let's do one thing right, which is Google advertisement or what we call pay-per-click or SEM, search engine marketing. Then that was pre-COVID, right? And it's gotten us success. It's given us lots of clients. From I Can Read, Jack's Place, many retail clients, bed linen clients including Epitex as well. Now these days, 20 over outlets. So good areas of focus. And eventually I think just one thing that why venture out is also because during COVID itself we start to see many entrepreneurs coming to us and say, hey, you know, like we are all going digitization, but what's beyond that? We need social media, we need a bit of punch, which is also why we are doing this video, because it's get us more exposure, more visibility, more connections as well. So a lot of things started to become social proofing. A lot of things starting to allow us to create assets to why us. Going social or venturing out has also allowed us to increase our unique selling proposition and stickiness to our clients.
And for that lead generation business, Epic Engage, right? At what age did you start it? Because it seems like something that you did when you were still in uni, was it?
So in uni, we were also given the opportunity to be part of this UOB SMU program. So we were called student consultants. Honestly, what these brands, they are very good SMEs or small medium enterprises. What they wanted us to do was market research. I think it's also been one of the first times where we started to have interactions with brands, with amazing SMEs out there. So Epic Engage wasn't formulated then because my initial career aspiration was to be a consultant and therefore I ended up at The Economist looking at spreadsheets. Then came a time where I needed some level of creativity and intertwining between data and creativity. Hence, Backside Ichi, you know, started to change career to be a digital marketer, absorb pay cut. Started out in a boutique SME agency and then of course went to one of the big fours managing different clients like P&G, Dell, Shell, FedEx, both B2B and B2C clients. Being in a regional perspective as well has led to a wider or more holistic set of marketing skill sets now. After that, became a business entrepreneur because I really wanted to inject a level of what certain gaps that we see in the market was also relatable to where we start to see agencies having a little bit of rigidity. So we wanted our approach to be more flexible, to be more hands-on, and ultimately delivering some level of knowledge transfer to the client so that instead of just relying 100% on agencies, on a client-vendor relationship, they have certain skill sets to think and move their sales and marketing pillars or ammunitions forward better.
For someone like yourself who had been the consulting industry, so what was your motivations to go and start your own business? Because that comes with risk, especially when you have a well-paying job. That might seem counterintuitive to some people to quit such a well-paying job to go start your own ventures. What was those motivations that led you to okay, I want to start Epic Engage?
it's always about building your own personal branding, right? So this is the opportunity where it differentiates an employee mindset and business entrepreneur mindset lah. Being an entrepreneur, we have also taken a very long, windy journey. I think it's more of a journey and more of a process. So during this process, we started to say, okay, when I first started, I still remember the accounting, invoicing, incorporation, and as well as finding clients, everything. I'm the CEO, CFO, everything lah, right?
You're probably wearing multiple hats.
Multiple hats, doing it a lot of things, but I started to realize that by having a team size of currently 8 full-timers and also 43 other freelancers, and having multiple agency collaborations, I think at the end of the day, all this process has shaped us to be very strong value creators and SOP generators. We start to know that how can we create value with limited resources, and then how do we accentuate these value and resources better for our clients. I think one more thing is SOP, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't want to work ourselves to bare bones. Look, I'm in my mid-30s now, and we definitely need our teams to run. We definitely need our next batch of leaders to run the show. So for us, having this initial way of doing things yourself keeps you grounded, keeps me very grounded, so that at every one point of the decision flow or the process flow, clients will make sure that they are very, very confident in your SOP, which will in turn convert to result. To an 8-year-old, I just say that, okay, ah boy or ah girl, if you already have a toy, this toy will in fact learn what kind of toy would you like, and they can shape-shift to be that toy that they desire to have fun and companionship with. Similarly, if we apply this to a business, then basically what we are trying to allow our business owners to experience is, hey, they're already doing things in a certain way, but would there be a new format of doing things, or would there be a difference in terms of outcomes? Whether is it a generative AI chatbot, whether is it a AI strategy mentor that consults them 24/7 without sleeping, so that they get the information and insights that they need to go regional, open up more outlets, or maybe have more manpower. I think at the end of the day, this is something that is the impact of NextGen AI, is to offer small to medium enterprises basically affordable solutions. AI doesn't need to be expensive. AI can still be affordable, yet truly applicable to businesses large or small. So one of the success stories that we have is this jewelry brand. Basically, we created an AI chatbot. Within just 3 months, 30% increase in conversions. And when I say conversions, we mean actual purchases. Take for example, let me give you a use case. Have you ever seen or been to any e-commerce or jewelry store that says, hey, you can even customize down to whether is it 14-inch or 16-inch length, and maybe even going down to further personalization, for example, the different kinds of gold within the jewelry itself. So I think it functions so much and it mimics so much like a human behavior. That's why I think when customers were initially using the chatbot, it didn't really feel like a chatbot. It felt like they were conveying to a live agent. And therefore, I think with human intelligence coupled with artificial intelligence, I think that's where truly magic happens. So AI plus HI will perhaps convey to what we call magic. Tools may or may not be expensive. So for example, I think the first step for any startup or any SME is consider freemium model, which often there's a lot of SaaS tools out there or software as a service tools out there that is freemium. Take for example LinkedIn, there's free one and there's also paid version. You want to have more features Sales Navigator, then you go and pay for the Sales Navigator. When we first initially started our products, started to manage a few key licenses to keep costs really low, because we wouldn't want to then go out to investors and say, hey, like 400,000 or 500,000, $500,000 is being spent on product development, and we have so little left in terms of marketing. Because often than not, we have to find a good criteria between product innovation as well as sales and marketing or channel distribution. So that has something been interesting for us to manage. Development work doesn't really need to be too expensive at the start. But I say have a good team, have a few good licenses, identify a few products that you can kind of like get some ideas from, or improve or customize the product and render it as a consultancy business, so that you take the SaaS and really put to application. How do we then fund all of this, right? So good news is that NextGen AI has managed to raise pre-seed of 450,000. Right now we have the place of our angel investor, right? So Picasso Fund, so on behalf of the Asia Print Holdings Group. So where Picasso and I really have managed to establish a good camaraderie, and he also believes, in the tech, some of our solutions, and also training, consultancy work that we develop for our clients as well. Sometimes it's also finding the right mentor. After knocking onto 29 other so-called investors, angels, or VC, we managed to find Picasso. So it's kind of like a needle amongst the haystack. And I think that's a journey whereby most entrepreneurs would probably give up after their first 5 rounds of finding investors. For us, we continued to persevere. So it was a grueling 6 months. Not that we truly wanted to just find the money for surrounding money, but we also needed a mentor. So I think that process has sharpened our ability to articulate our benefits to anyone that we meet. So first step, we got to manage our core, right? So we got to be very strong in our SOP that we have just shared earlier on just now, right? Build teams, collaborate with teams, right? Expand the channel partnership. Of course, there also has to be people above you who can advise you, business mentors, angel investors, VCs. I think these are already the pool of audiences that we're already speaking to and will continue to speak with. And of course, the third layer would be having pro-teach, meaning to say potential successor agencies. So perhaps that's where you and I, we can grow our team or collaborate with agencies who are also aspiring to be that next growing stardom agency. I think with these 3 levels of communication and growth, can an agency or an ecosystem truly continue to pivot and continue to innovate rather than being complacent at each stage.
So how did you navigate that needle in the haystack situation to find the right mentor?
There was definitely, we went through rounds, we paid certain money, I would say, really, because there's no free lunch in this world. At the end of the day, pay for connections. So we went through certain private rounds, certain rounds to actually reach to certain key decision makers. Of course, we did our research on LinkedIn as well, outreach. I mean, clearly the LinkedIn outreach was 0 results, but nonetheless, we managed to find our inward route to communicating with some of this. Perhaps sometimes it's maybe just the corporate purchaser or potentially like the CFO who would then lead to the final key decision maker. But so there are many different outlets of success. We tried a couple of few, LinkedIn, outreach, EDMs, and we found that still it's who you kind of know each other, which kind of sparks off like any chemistry, and that's how it led to Picasso lah.
This saying, your network is your network.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure if you will agree with it.
Fully agree.
What would you say to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to build their network? How do they get started? Because I think it can be quite daunting for someone who is new to this.
So being an ambivert, which is a middle ground between an extrovert and an introvert, sometimes after every networking, it drains us. Throughout each networking series, what we do was to go to Eventbrite, go to Lu.ma, right, Luma. At the end of the day, select a couple generative AI, and bam, there we go. This process in the first 3 months of this year, 2024, every year my wife will say, you probably don't have a wife because you don't even come back. You're probably having fun, right? So of course there are times where we have to balance out between work and play, and also our family and kids or loved ones or etc. right, at the end of the day. So that led us to think a little bit sharper. Why not let's create our own thematic networking whereby we are now the presenters, the hosts, and we bring the kind of connections that we want to add value to the audiences that we want. And I think this approach could be a little bit more curated, a little bit more tailored, because you get to control and you have a certain level of visibility and exposure. And that has allowed us to control the crowd and as well as bring increased relevance or attention to us, that we are the knowledge players in terms of AI and marketing. I think so far things has been going well. We are also partnering a couple of people like NTUC, Lytton, training institutes, as well as AI, sustainability people down the road as well. So I think this has really helped us to sharpen our focus. Kind of same but different. We are attending networkings, but at the same time we are also curating networks and building these networks where everybody can benefit at the same time.
I think what you shared is really interesting. So you move from networking, like going for events and outreaching to people, to having people outreach to you.
Yeah.
You get to know them.
So you get to know them, they get to know a bit of us. It's kind of like an exchange exchange platform for everybody.
Wow, that's really interesting. Like getting people to come to you instead of reaching out. Do you have a team or like a partner you have in this business?
So for each Epic Engage and NextGen AI, we have our partners on board. And of course, for NextGen AI, because of this pre-seed, I think it's also allowed us to have more manpower to manage. So definitely there's project managers. I work with 2 directors on NextGen AI, and these have given us some level of comfort where we leverage our own strengths. So there are people who are great at presenting, right? There are people who are great at doing. There are people great in managing other talents or workflows. So each of us, we contribute, do our part in order to scale this company. So at the end of the day, I think it's also where it comes to resource allocation, fighting the right battles. Not every client pitch we need to do, not every client we need to serve. Not everyone will be an employee, even if this person could be an employee for 6 months. So it also boils down to very careful selection.
Was it something that you started solo and then eventually you got your team and your directors and all that?
I believe that in every vision, I'm more of a communicative partner. So definitely we already have 2 other partners. Started developing partnerships with agencies, and then hey, this agency is a live streaming agency, started to get gelling, from one contract, from one ticket, it moved on to second contract ticket. These lead to that, and then eventually we're starting to merge our activities together into one P&L balance sheet, more trust, more decision making combined together. Say, hey, one day we decided, why not let's do it together.
What do you look for in someone to work with?
3 successful ingredients probably would be integrity. I'll look for someone with integrity to complete the work on time, to communicate to clients, to be accountable to success at the end of the day. When he or she articulates his or her thoughts, deliver, put it into actionables, break that task, break that outcomes into several layers. So integrity, being transparent, as well as being extremely accountable to actions. I think these are the 3 successful elements.
And how big is your team currently for NextGen AI?
Being a lean startup, we have about 8 people. So what we do is each of us are strong in lead generation, live streaming, paid performance media, business strategy. So we kind of like dissect according to our specialization. That's one way of how we segment the workflow. Then the second part is who is going to be strong in front end, answering clients, responding, suggesting, preemptive, and then the other portion will be the middle and back end office. So we kind of like segregate it based on the departments as well as whether or not how front or back facing this will be on a 2-point scale.
So you play to your own strengths?
Yes, we play to our own specialization, because just like what McDonald's is doing, the first time when they launched McDonald's, 22 seconds to get a burger. Somebody is great at putting 2 burgers in front, somebody is good at stuffing the meat, somebody is extremely good at wrapping the burger and pacing it. Who's loving it? So at the end of the day, I think it just becomes like we put our own best foot forward so that it wraps up nicely as a package and people get their happy meal. My specialization is to bring the right SWAT army together. So being able to first have that bold, somebody gotta be bold enough to think of a vision, to gel this vision to the team, one common objective, right? So our next objective is really to raise that seed funding, which we are very confident with our mentor. So we kind of steer the ship together. So that's, I think, one of my biggest strengths. Apart from that, being trained in digital matrix, as alluding from being the economist over down to seeing spreadsheets and numbers, mixing it with a little bit of creativity. I think that's who I am at the core. I'm a storyteller, but I'm a data-backed storyteller. And this so far has been able to convey a sense of proof, a sense of confidence in our clients, to justify that each thing that we do should be measurable in a smart and efficient manner. Every company will have their own call. I think for my advice for new startups would be that if an investor is asking you anything more than 20% of your shares, be very, very clear, is that mentor going to be a strategic investor, or that investor is just going to M&A you away and take maybe more than 50% of your shares away. So I think there has to be a fine line between a percentage of shares being given out or allocated to. And what would be the reason, or what would be the reason behind holding so much shares or taking away the majority vote for you? And at the same time, I think just to any founder, just gotta ensure that you maintain 51% and not 50%. You gotta have 51% in order to make your decision stay, and so that you will not get voted out of your own company. So I think that's just a tip or two for new startup founders getting into the stage of equity. But everybody can always hope for a better work-life balance. Similarly for myself lah. Right now it's a weekend, I'm here dedicating time just like you. But I think at the end of the day, just be very mindful of quality time. Just being present and mindful is extremely important. You know, try to have a religion somewhere or another. Try to have an inner religion, even an inner belief system, even if you don't have a religion. Because I think sometimes it helps you to kind of pace down, meditate. As a Libra, I think one of my core virtues is to stay balanced, no matter how much turbulence or how much storm there is in the market. With generative AI, it's a bull, but at the end of the day, I would say that it's how you get to the finishing line and how do you finish it off. I think that truly makes sense. So work hard, work smart, play hard. For the next 5 years is where we would have great products, great markets. This year, we have already reached Singapore. Next year, Malaysia. It's about channel distribution. As I allude to, like generative AI on the AI space, it's not about who has the latest technologies, but who occupies the largest chess piece in or influence in that respective market. So what we aim for is to have a certain set of steady product stream with innovative roadmaps upcoming, but at the same time as well, I think it will be which channels and which markets will have a greater reach or greater number of users for us. So that's going to be the next milestone for us to be as a regional company in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as Thailand. Personalization is often talked about. So for AI CRM, it becomes interesting. Just a couple moments ago, I was also looking at HubSpot and I started to see that businesses can now prompt against their data at the click of fingertips. I can know how much, let's say this Hydro Flask, right? How much Hydro Flask inventory do I have in a warehouse? And it can tell across the different stores, maybe because they are integrated on these platforms, CMSs, and also the inventory. I think it becomes a bit more conversational in integrating AI into MarTech to explain things in a very layman fashion. How many units here? Who are the next customers? Who are the next customers to focus to? In a kind of conversation way that as though we want to talk to a person. So I think MarTech is going to be infused with AI. Affiliates will also start to see themselves being part of the business. Having a clear affiliate system can also make the affiliate part of that business. I think when brands starts thinking of how can they involve and enroll customers to even become their business partners, I think that's where a brand truly starts to hit critical mass and success. 2 paths. If you're an employee, continue to be an employee. Okay, if you're an entrepreneur want to be, I think it's about knowing where your end goal is, knowing where your compass is, finding the right teams. Don't be afraid to try, don't be afraid to experiment. And of course, there are certain sacrifices to be made, but balance out your sacrifices to achieve your goals, continuously evaluate. Do not forget to consistently evaluate. Evaluate, feedback, listen to feedback, adjust accordingly, and continuously pivot and adapt to new challenges.
How do people know like whether they are employee or entrepreneur?
Some of my so-called friends, you know, they're already in their mid-30s, they say, okay, like I kind of like comfortable, but yet at the same time there's something in them lingering that say, maybe I should do a little bit more. I have an e-commerce idea. But sometimes, you know, someone just gotta pat you on the shoulder and say, hey, maybe you just need that extra leap of confidence to try an e-commerce store, to do, I don't know, drop shipping, to try out affiliate marketing, or to try out making your first content on TikTok live stream. I think sometimes some of us just need the extra push to maybe transit over between an employee to maybe say like an entrepreneur.
Who's your favorite music artist?
Bruno Mars.
Okay, do you listen to music when you work?
Yes, but not Bruno Mars.
What do you listen to?
Next.
Okay. Let's say if AI replaces all our jobs, what will you be doing?
Holiday lah then.
When you're working, do you snack?
Yeah, I kind of snack.
What's your favorite snack?
Hello Panda.
Hello Panda. Which flavor?
The chocolate and vanilla.
Oh, nice.
The chocolate crust and vanilla one.
Okay. And what's your go-to ice cream flavor?
There's this Don Don Donki, they like to sell this mochi. And I like mochi because it's soft on the outside and then icy on the inside. It kind of calms my head down a little bit.
Thanks everyone for joining us on this episode of On 3 Ticket. Please subscribe and also follow us on our TikTok and Instagram on 3 Ticket. And how about for you, Frank? Where can we find out more about NextGen AI and yourself?
You can go to nextgenai.io where you will be able to WhatsApp us, send us an email inquiry, and we're happy to take a conversation forward. All right.
All right, thank you so much, Frank, for your time.
Thank you.
It's very insightful.
Yes, likewise.